Okay, just imagine this for a second. The government sends you a letter demanding you surrender your passport. You're effectively trapped in your own country, and they give you no real reason why. Well, that's not a hypothetical. It's exactly what happened back in 1978. Today, we're going to unpack the landmark case that followed. It's an incredible story of how one person's fight for their right to travel completely redefined what liberty means for over 1 billion people in India.
You know, like so many huge historical shifts, this one didn't start with some grand declaration or a massive protest. Nope, it started with something really small, really personal, and totally unexpected, a single letter in the mail.
So let's set the scene. The year is 1977. India is just coming out of a very controversial period of emergency rule. The whole political atmosphere is tense, to say the least. And this fundamental relationship between a citizen and the state, it's being questioned and redefined in real time. And right into this charged environment, a single official-looking envelope arrives. It's addressed to a journalist named Maneka Gandhi. And this one piece of paper, well, it's about to set off an absolute constitutional firestorm. The order itself was just shockingly vague. I mean, can you imagine? You're told you have 7 days to surrender your passport, your key to personal freedom and travel, all for a reason as broad as in the interest of the general public. That's it. No specific details, no real explanation, and, this is crucial, no chance for her to tell her side of the story.
So of course, Maneka Gandhi challenged this, taking it all the way to the Supreme Court. And this is where we get to the central legal battle. It was a real clash between an old, rigid way of looking at the law and a brand new, more human vision of what liberty should actually mean.
The government's argument was pretty straightforward. They were leaning on a case from 1950, and they basically said, look, as long as we follow the procedure established by law, we're good. It doesn't matter if the procedure itself feels unfair. But Maneka Gandhi's team came back with something revolutionary. They argued that for personal liberty under the Constitution's Article 21 to mean anything at all, the procedure itself has to be fair and just and reasonable. You can't just follow any old procedure. It has to be a good one.
And this is where the Supreme Court does something truly game-changing. Faced with these two totally opposing views, the 7-judge bench didn't just pick a side. No, they created a powerful new doctrine to settle this for good. They called it the Golden Triangle.
The court had to answer a really foundational question about the Indian Constitution itself. Are all the fundamental rights it gives us just a list of separate, disconnected protections? Are they like little islands? Can the government just pick one to follow and ignore all the others?
And their answer was a loud, clear no. Their new way of thinking was simple, but so profound. They said these rights, equality, freedom, life, they're not separate islands at all. They're all interconnected, woven together to form a single protective web. You can't pull on one thread without affecting the entire net.
So this protective web idea became a really practical 3-part test. From now on, any law that tries to restrict your personal liberty has to pass 3 checks. First, under Article 14, it can't be arbitrary. Second, under Article 19, any restrictions have to be reasonable. And third, under Article 21, the procedure itself must be fair. All of a sudden, the government had to clear 3 really high hurdles, not just one. Okay, so this led the court right to the heart of the matter. What does a fair and just procedure actually look like? What does it mean in the real world? Well, the court reached way back to an ancient principle of natural justice, a Latin maxim, adi alterum partem. It literally means hear the other side. The court declared that this right is so fundamental, so essential, that it's automatically imported into every single law, even if the law itself doesn't say a word about it. You always have the right to be heard, period.
And this all boiled down to the court setting a brand new standard. Any government action that takes away your liberty must now follow a procedure that is just, fair, and reasonable. And it can't be, and these are the court's powerful words, fanciful, oppressive, or arbitrary. That phrase became the new gold standard for justice in India.
What this ruling really did was introduce a huge legal idea into Indian law, substantive due process. Now, in simple terms, what that means is that it's not enough for a court to just check if the government followed the rules as written. The court's job now is to look inside the rules and ask, but is this law fair? Is it just? The judiciary was no longer just a referee calling fouls. It had become a guardian of the very soul of the law.
So yeah, the case started with a single passport. But the long-term impact of this judgment, wow. It was an absolute explosion of rights that would go on to benefit millions of people for decades to come. Here's how they did it. The court completely expanded how we understand Article 21. They ruled that the word life in the Constitution doesn't just mean breathing, mere animal existence. No,
It means a life with human dignity.
And once life meant life with dignity, well, the floodgates just flew open. The court started recognizing that a dignified life actually requires certain things. And suddenly, rights that were never explicitly written down, things like your right to legal aid, your right to a speedy trial, the right to a clean environment, and yes, even your right to privacy, were all seen as essential parts of this one powerful article.
Sure, Maneka Gandhi eventually got her passport back. But you know what? That's almost a footnote to this story. The real lasting legacy of her case is how it transformed Article 21 from just a dry sentence in a law book into a living, breathing shield that protects the dignity and liberty of every single citizen in India. So this leaves us with a final thought, right? This was a case about one passport, way back in 1978. But the principle it established, that the government cannot act unfairly, arbitrarily, or without reason, that is the very bedrock of modern liberty in India. The next time you question a government action, or demand transparency, or assert your right to privacy, just remember that the legal DNA of that freedom can be traced right back to this one constitutional firestorm. So the question isn't just how a 1978 ruling protects you, but how are you using those protections today?